Houston is officially America's fastest sinking major city, with parts dropping over an inch every year. Yet millions of Houstonians are living in one of the nation's fastest growing metropolitan areas that is literally collapsing beneath their feet. Houston added nearly 200,000 new residents last year, making it the second fastest growing metropolitan area in America. But the ground underneath this sprawling greater Houston-Galveston region is plummeting at rates that would alarm engineers anywhere else in the world. Houston isn't just sinking slowly, it is dropping faster than any other major American city. In some areas, the ground falls more than an inch every single year, and it has been happening for more than a century. Since the 1920s, parts of Houston have sunk between 10 and 12 feet. That is an entire story of a building gone, swallowed by the earth. Here is what makes Houston's story so remarkable. The very thing causing the city to sink is also driving its explosive growth. Every new resident, every new suburb, every new shopping center requires water. In the greater Houston-Galveston region, that water comes from deep underground aquifers, specifically the Chicot Evangeline aquifer system that has been supporting this region for millions of years. When people pump that water out, the ground above literally collapses. The sponge effect. Think of it like a sponge, as lead researcher Leonard Ohenhen from Columbia University Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory explains. When a sponge is full of water and you place weight on top, it maintains its shape. But remove that water, and the sponge compresses under even the slightest pressure. Houston sits on clay-heavy gumbo soil that acts exactly like that sponge. As groundwater gets extracted from the Chicot Evangeline aquifer to supply the city's booming population, the clay particles settle and compact, causing the land surface to drop permanently. The numbers are staggering. More than 40% of Houston's land area is subsiding faster than 5 millimeters per year, with some areas dropping twice that rate. Near the rapidly growing suburb of Fulshear, Texas, the ground is sinking at 1.3 inches annually. That's more than a foot every decade. In certain neighborhoods between Katy and Fulshear, INSAR satellite measurements show the Earth dropping over 3 centimeters per year, creating what scientists call subsidence bowls, crater-like depressions that dot the landscape like invisible wounds. Since 1836, groundwater withdrawals have caused about 3,200 square miles of the greater Houston-Galveston region to subside more than 1 foot. To put that in perspective, that is an area larger than the entire state of Delaware, slowly sinking into the earth. Some areas have dropped as much as 12 to 13 feet, fundamentally altering the topography of one of America's most important economic regions. Professor Shuhab Khan from the University of Houston puts Houston's situation in a global context. He says, "Subsidence used to be a rare phenomenon. Now it is all over the world." There are 200 locations in 34 countries where known subsidence has been recorded. Cities in the northern Gulf of Mexico, such as Houston, have experienced one of the fastest rates of subsidence. The science behind this phenomenon is both elegant and terrifying. About 80% of all subsidence relates to groundwater extraction from systems like the Chicot Evangeline and Jasper aquifers. Lucas Gregory from Texas A&M explains it simply. The main driver of subsidence is groundwater pumping. When water is removed from underground aquifers, the clay and silt particles that have been suspended for millennia suddenly lose their support structure. Clay acts like tiny platelets. Once the water is removed, the particles settle flat against each other, never returning to their original position. Unlike a sponge that can re-expand when water is added, soil compaction is permanent. Over the last century, Houston's aquifers have lost between 300 and 400 feet of water, leaving the land above to collapse into the void. It is a one-way process that cannot be reversed, even if groundwater levels are restored. This creates a vicious cycle monitored by agencies like the Texas Water Development Board. As Houston grows, more water is needed. As more water gets pumped from underground, more land sinks. As land sinks, flooding becomes worse during storms. And as flooding worsens, the weight of standing water actually compresses the soil further, accelerating the subsidence process. Brownwood, a neighborhood swallowed. The human cost of this geological drama is written across abandoned neighborhoods and broken infrastructure. Perhaps nowhere is this more evident than at the Baytown Nature Center, which sits on what was once Brownwood, a thriving middle-class community of nearly 400 homes. Christina Butcher, naturalist at the Baytown Nature Center, says that Brownwood was actually referred to as the River Oaks of Baytown. It was a neighborhood that had oil executives, doctors, and lawyers, and upper-middle-class families. Launched in the 1930s and marketed to executives of humble oil, Brownwood was originally built 10 feet above sea level on a beautiful 500-acre peninsula along Galveston Bay. But by 1978, subsidence had caused the ground to sink more than 8 feet, bringing the neighborhood nearly to sea level. Hurricane Carla in 1961 revealed the emerging problem, flooding most of Brownwood and ending new development. During the 1970s and 1980s, the area sank a total of 10 to 15 feet. Hurricane Alicia in 1983 delivered the final blow, prompting FEMA to declare the area unfit for human habitation. The federal government bought out the remaining property owners, and today not a single house survives. Where families once barbecued in their backyards, egrets now wade through marshland. The subsidence belt. The subsidence does not just swallow neighborhoods, it activates geological faults that have been dormant for millennia. Since the late 1930s, 86 active faults in the greater Houston-Galveston area have offset the land surface, damaging buildings and highways throughout Harris County and Montgomery County. These are not natural earthquake faults, but man-made fractures caused by uneven ground subsidence. As some areas sink faster than others, the earth literally cracks along the boundaries. Scientists warn that if current groundwater pumping trends continue, faults in rapidly growing areas like Katy and the Woodlands will likely become reactivated and increase in activity over time. The infrastructure damage from these subtle ground movements can be catastrophic. The Nature Cities study notes that the latent nature of this risk means that infrastructure can be silently compromised over time, with damage only becoming evident when it is severe or potentially catastrophic. Even Texas's most sacred historical site has not escaped. The San Jacinto Battleground State Historical Park, where Texas won its independence, and which is commemorated by the towering San Jacinto Monument, is now partly submerged due to subsidence. The very ground where Sam Houston's army defeated Santa Anna's forces in 1836 has sunk below the waters of Buffalo Bayou. Yet despite these alarming realities, Houston continues its relentless expansion. The metro area added almost 200,000 residents last year, bringing its population to 7.8 million. From 2010 to 2023, Houston gained over 1.5 million new residents, making it the second fastest growing metro in the nation behind Dallas-Fort Worth. Fulseer, sitting directly in one of the fastest subsiding areas, was the second fastest growing city in the entire United States in both 2023 and 2024, and is now home to about 55,000 residents. This creates an almost surreal paradox. The areas sinking fastest are often the same areas experiencing the most dramatic population growth. The primary cause of subsidence, groundwater extraction from the Chicot Evangeline aquifer related to rapid development, is being driven by the very success that makes Houston attractive to new residents and businesses. Recognizing the severity of the problem, Texas created the Harris-Galveston Subsidence District in 1975, the first political subdivision of its kind in the United States. The district's mission is simple. It aims to reduce groundwater pumping by requiring communities to convert to surface water sources like rivers and lakes. The results have been dramatic in areas that have made the switch. Mike Houston of the Subsidence District explains that when you see subsidence, we know what it is caused by. It is caused by pumping too much groundwater too quickly in that area. In places like Pasadena and Baytown that switched to surface water in the 1970s, subsidence has almost completely stopped. The $57 billion fix. But conversion comes with massive costs and logistical challenges. The Surface Water Supply Project, designed to bring water from Lake Houston to rapidly growing western suburbs, carries an estimated price tag of nearly $2 billion. The project involves over 55 miles of pipeline, 2 large pump stations, and a massive expansion of the Northeast Water Purification Plant that will increase freshwater output by 320 million gallons per day. For residents, this transition means significantly higher water bills. Katy Council member Rory Robertson said during a council meeting that many residents are really upset about this when discussing utility rate increases tied to the surface water conversion. The subsidence districts have set ambitious deadlines. Harris County must achieve 60% surface water conversion by 2025 and 80% by 2035. Fort Bend County has until 2027 to reach its 60% target. These are not suggestions. They are legal requirements with enforcement mechanisms backed by the Texas Water Development Board. Yet even these aggressive timelines may not be enough. The relentless growth of Houston, especially on the north and west sides, has created what researchers call a belt of subsidence, where new developments largely have not yet converted to surface water. As researcher Rosario Sanchez warns, even though Houston has the 2 subsidence districts already in place to prevent overpumping, it is not enough. The flooding implications of continued subsidence are particularly alarming. Hurricane Harvey in 2017 provided a devastating preview of Houston's vulnerability, dropping 48 inches of rain over 4 days and flooding 160,000 homes. The storm produced the largest rainfall total of any hurricane in United States history, but much of the catastrophic flooding occurred in areas that had subsided significantly over the decades. When land sinks, it does not just get lower. It changes the fundamental drainage patterns that have evolved over thousands of years. Water that once flowed smoothly toward the Gulf of Mexico now pools in subsidence bowls, creating permanent flood-prone areas where none existed before. The USGS Interactive Subsidence Map reveals Harris County sitting in one massive subsidence bowl containing many smaller bowls, some with 8 to 9 foot drops in elevation. Many of these areas coincide exactly with neighborhoods known for flooding, including the Heights, Montrose, Downtown, and the East End. Climate change adds another layer of complexity. As sea levels rise and severe weather events become more frequent and more intense, Houston's subsided areas become increasingly vulnerable. The combination of higher sea levels, more intense storms, and lower land elevation creates what scientists call a compound risk, with multiple hazards converging to create catastrophic potential. Houston's response has been characteristically ambitious. Following Harvey, Harris County voters passed a $2.5 billion bond issue for flood abatement projects. The long-planned Ike Dike initiative, conceived by Texas A&M professor Bill Merrill, is a massive coastal barrier system designed to protect the entire upper Texas coast, and it received federal authorization in 2022. The Coastal Texas project is expected to take about 20 years to construct and to cost an estimated $57 billion, making it one of the largest infrastructure projects in U.S. Army Corps of Engineers history. Colonel Rhett A. Blackman describes the scope. The Coastal Texas project is one of the largest projects in the history of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. This project is important to the nation for many reasons. Not only will it reduce risk to the vulnerable populations along the Texas coast, it will also protect vital ecosystems and economically critical infrastructure vital to the U.S. supply chain. Yet critics argue these massive engineering solutions do not address the fundamental problem. Kristen Schlemmer of Bayou City Waterkeeper contends that the Ike Dike's immense costs and delayed timeline have left communities along the coast without much needed storm protection. Instead of throwing more time and money into the Ike Dike, we should redirect energy toward an approach that favors smaller-scale protections that can be implemented on a faster timeline. Meanwhile, the growth continues unabated. If current trends persist, Houston could overtake Chicago as the nation's third-largest city by 2035. The metro area's 2.5% growth rate is more than double the national average, driven primarily by domestic migration as Americans seek affordable housing and economic opportunities. This presents perhaps the most profound question facing Houston's future. Can a city simultaneously solve a century-old geological crisis while accommodating millions of new residents? The answer will likely determine not just Houston's fate, but serve as a model for other rapidly growing cities facing similar challenges. The latest scientific research suggests time is running short. The 2025 study in the journal Nature Cities confirmed Houston as the fastest sinking major city in America, but it noted that the data excluded some of the greater Houston-Galveston region's quickest subsiding areas and rapidly developing suburbs. As Leonard Ohenhen, the study's lead author, warns, subsidence-induced infrastructure damage can occur even with minor changes in land motion. Houston's story is ultimately one of American ambition colliding with geological reality. For nearly 2 centuries, this city has embodied the frontier spirit of endless growth and boundless optimism. But the land beneath Houston is sending an unmistakable message. There are limits to how much the earth can give before it begins to take back. The question now is whether Houston's legendary problem-solving culture can engineer solutions fast enough to outpace the very ground sinking beneath the city's feet. The clock is ticking, measured not in years or decades, but in millimeters of subsidence that accumulate with each passing day, bringing this great American city slowly but inexorably toward a reckoning with the geological forces it has awakened. For those who want to explore the data themselves, the USGS Interactive Subsidence Map provides a sobering visualization of just how much ground Houston has already lost and how much more it stands to lose.